about 6 months before the COVID pandemic started. And what it's about is trying to find conservative, bipartisan solutions to problems. And we started off, our last event was in mid-January of 2020, right before the pandemic started. We had former Secretary of State Henry Kissinger as our guest, and he was talking about, foreign policy, and it was a great event. And then the pandemic started, and so we haven't been able to have events for most of the last year. But now that we're starting to come out of this, we decided to have a virtual event, and we thought really two of the most important United States senators in terms of being able to get things done for our country right now are Joe Manchin and Susan Collins, and they agreed to be interviewed by me next Tuesday, and so we're looking forward to the event.
I look forward to how you ask questions. I'm going to be critiquing you as a question asker because that's what I do for a living. And nobody asked Joe Manchin the obvious questions are, he talks about changing the filibuster, but nobody asked him, are you talking about changing it the old-fashioned way via a 60-vote rule amendment or via the nuclear option? It's like the most obvious question, and nobody asks it.
Yep. Well, get ready for Tuesday night, Hugh. You'll be hearing a lot of the questions that should be being asked by, someone who, knows this business, and also two people who I know quite well, and I think it'll be a very, very good discussion.
Got a question for you, Governor. Who is the toughest interview out there? And you can accept current company. Who is the toughest interview for you to do?
It's interesting. I think for me, the toughest interview that I do is Laura Ingraham, because Laura understands both for me, when we talk, both the law and politics very, very well. And Laura does not allow you to ever get away with any pat answers. So I think current company accepted, which, by the way, when my wife saw my schedule today, she's like, she goes, I love listening to those interviews. So I think she enjoys listening to your interviews. I think the toughest one for me would be Laura Ingraham over the years.
All right, so let me ask you one of those Laura Ingraham questions. John Durham, who you know personally, has resigned as the United States Attorney for Connecticut. He remains the special counsel. Given your experience as a U.S. Attorney and in the Department of Justice and as a governor, do you think he has the necessary independence to pursue his inquiry, and can he bring charges without getting them cleared by Attorney General Merrick?
I think two different questions, right? So I think John, in the years that I interacted with him, has the requisite independent spirit and skills and guts to be able to do what he thinks is necessary. Now, whether he can bring charges without the permission of Attorney General Garland is going to be up to Attorney General Garland, because when you're the Attorney General of the United States, if you want to make sure that charges are run by you before they're brought, you have the absolute power to do that. And I can recall during my time as U.S. Attorney, when it was Attorney General John Ashcroft, I never once had to run charges by the Attorney General as U.S. Attorney in New Jersey. But when it was Attorney General Alberto Gonzales, he was much more hands-on in that regard. So every Attorney General brings their own style to it. I don't know which way Attorney General Garland will be, but I know that John Durham would do it the right way if given the opportunity.
All right. So do you have confidence that if there is wrongdoing, we will learn about wrongdoing in the course of what appears to have been early surveillance of President Trump when he was President-elect Trump?
I believe we will. I believe that's why John Durham was selected in the first place, because he has a history of that level of independence. It is somewhat disconcerting to me that he's resigned as U.S. Attorney in Connecticut. I can tell you, analogizing back to the Clinton administration, he fired, as you'll recall, every U.S. attorney but one, and that was Mike Chertoff, who at the time was the U.S. Attorney in New Jersey and was pursuing a very sensitive corruption investigation against Saul Wackler, the former chief judge of the New York Court of Appeals, the top state court in New York. And he was allowed to stay. and stay until that investigation was completed and brought to a successful conclusion. So I'm a little concerned about John resigning the U.S. Attorney's position in Connecticut and before this is completed. But we'll have to wait and see whether that is a sign that they're trying to control this or whether it was purely John's choice.
All right, Governor, very quickly, have you spoken with former President Trump since he left office?
Not since he's left office, no.
All right. Then let me go to the stimulus. You used to be a governor. New Jersey's about to get $6 billion. What do you think they'll do with it? What should they do with it? Do they have any idea how to spend that much unlooked for money?
They'll waste it because I'll just give you this one example, Hugh. When I left the governorship, my final budget 4 years ago was $34.7 billion. The budget just put in before there was any stimulus from the federal government by my successor, Phil Murphy, was $44.8 billion. He has increased spending over $10 billion in 4 years, wow. 29% in 4 years. In my 8 years, spending increased a total of 5%. The spending is like drunken sailors in New Jersey, and he borrowed $4.5 billion for current expenses during the COVID crisis. Turned out that revenues didn't go down at all in terms of tax revenues, despite him saying it would, and going to the Supreme Court and getting them to allow him to borrow money for current expenses, which, in my view, was unconstitutional. So I am confident he will waste it. I'm confident that he or his administration has no competence to spend it in the correct way. What they should do is give the money back that they borrowed, that the taxpayers are going to have to pay for over the course of the next 20 years, and they should reduce taxes in New Jersey, which is one of the highest tax states in the country.
Now, yesterday, Ohio Attorney General David Yost, very good lawyer, very sound constitutionalist and originalist, Republican, has brought suit against the federal government, the Department of the Treasury, because of the restriction placed on the COVID money or the stimulus money that says this money may not in any way support a tax cut. He views that as taking the state sovereignty hostage. Do you agree with him?
I do. Listen, if you're gonna give money to the states, you can say to them, this money is for drug treatment. This money is for transportation. But I think when you give money that is otherwise unrestricted, but restricted only in terms of the state being able to make a decision about what its tax rates are, I think that's very, very problematic. When I read about it, I was concerned about it. And I bet you there's going to be a bunch of state attorneys general who are going to join the Ohio lawsuit.
And the Sixth Circuit is very favorable, I think. Let me close by talking a little bit about 2024 with you, Governor. I know you haven't declared you're running or anything like that. Fred Barnes and I believe that the network should start bringing together a group of Republicans on a rotating basis like they did Democrats in 2019, to start talking about the issues. Would you participate in that? And do you think it's too early to start talking about that with groups of people like you and Cotton and Pompeo and DeSantis and other people who are thinking about it? Is it too early to have these conversations?
I would wait until the fall, but I think once the fall comes, and we'll have 8-9 months of Biden and Harris actions to begin to talk about and to get some distance from the end of the Trump administration, so that we're not rehashing old things, that we're talking about the future. I think any time there is intelligent political conversation and debate about the future of our country and the people who want to lead it, I think the country benefits from it.
Last question, Governor. There's a rush to blame the Southern Baptists for this crazed kid in Atlanta who killed 8 people yesterday. There's also a lot of talk about Asian American bigotry, which of course we would condemn, but you're a prosecutor. Do we have any idea, do you think, what motivated the psychopath yet?
Not from what I've read, Hugh. And again, this is the problem with society today in general. Everybody wants instant gratification, instant explanations without facts or evidence, and they want it to comport with their political view of the world. Very dangerous way to approach things, Hugh.
And they're just forcing it into a narrative. Governor Christie, good luck Tuesday night. Is that being beamed virtually, Governor? Can everyone watch it?
Everyone watch it. Go to ChristieInstitute.com. You can
ChristieInstitute.com. I think Susan Collins and Joe Manchin with Governor Christie, if they only had a moderator there, that would be a great